Whatever makes you happy, what gets you out of bed, whatever kicks the cobwebs so you'll join in instead.
Good sport!
A victorious daydream.
Good sport!
Don't sweat glory or fame.
Good sport!
Ain't we all on the same team?
Good sport!
It's the name of the game.
Hello and welcome to a brand new edition of Good Sports. We took a week off, but we're back once again, and boy, do we have a great show for you this week. My name is Ryan Flaherty, by the way. Thanks so much for being here for episode 21. And yes, coming up this week, our guest from the Pebbled Ice on a very busy start to his season, but he's found some time. He carved out some time for us, to use another curling term there. It is the curler, Rylan Kleiter, the skip of Team Kleiter, fresh off his second Grand Slam event of the season and looking ahead to the Olympic trials coming up next month. We are going to talk to him about all of that and a lot more coming up this week on the show. Of course, if you're new to the show, well, first of all, thanks for hopping on the bandwagon. Really appreciate you. You've already found us here on YouTube, so you've done a lot of the heavy lifting already, but maybe, make sure to tell your friends and family as well that you can find us on the Dufferin Ave Media Network YouTube channel. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. We appreciate you doing all of that. You can also follow the show on Instagram. At GoodSports306 is the account that you're going to want to follow for interview clips. Also, a lot of news about teams and athletes from here in town, especially when it comes to results from games and things like that, or maybe individual awards. We like to reshare a lot of that kind of content on our Instagram account as well. If you want to reach out to the show and contact us directly, you can send an email to goodsports306@gmail.com. So that is how you can interact with the show. Yes, we are on YouTube, but also audio versions of every episode can also be found on most of your favorite podcast platforms. I think we're still working on the iTunes element, but everywhere else pretty much you can find us, including Spotify, for your audio version. You can download that, play it while you're on a drive maybe somewhere, or maybe you're just too preoccupied to watch. I understand. That's how that works. But the good news is you can just get an audio version and join us that way as well. So those are all the ways that you can get interact with the show. We hope you do take advantage of one or more of those. As mentioned, Rylan Kleiter coming up in just a few minutes. But first, I'd like to start the show off with a little segment that we look back at the last week and ahead to the week to come in an item we call What's Going On? And it is October, and that means what's going on is, well, everything. Everything is happening right now, to quote a famous or not so famous person who said that one time or another. So let's try to get through this without taking a full hour to do it, shall we? Let's start on the gridiron with some football because, man, it is definitely football weather right now. Let's start with the Saskatoon Hilltops, who have punched their ticket to the Prairie Football Conference Final. No surprise, the Hilltops pretty much play in that game every year. But here's the difference this year. They're not the defending PFC champs. They're trying to wrestle that title back from their provincial rivals, the Regina Thunder. And it is the Hilltops taking on the Thunder in the PFC final down at Mosaic Stadium. Now, the teams finished with the same record this year, but the Thunder actually finished one win better than the Hilltops. So they finished first at 7-1. The Hilltops were just 6-2 this year. So they finished second, and that means that Regina is hosting this Prairie Football Conference Championship in their stadium, the one they share with the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the University of Regina Rams there at Mosaic. The Hilltops, though, they definitely punched their ticket to the final in an emphatic way with a 60-26 victory over the Winnipeg Rifles in one of the two semifinal games last weekend. They scored 21 of those 60 points in the first quarter and 28 of them in the third quarter. So they started both halves very strong indeed. And that Hilltops ground game that has been their strength all year, well, it continued to be the forefront of their offense. 7 rushing touchdowns on the day. 7 touchdowns on the ground. Of their 8, they scored 8 times. 7 of those came on the ground. The quarterback, Griffin Sander, did throw 1 touchdown pass. He was 8 of 9 for 87 yards. But again, it's the ground game doing a lot of the heavy liftings. Friend of the show, David Collins, who has been right here in the studio, 16 carries for 207 yards and 2 of those touchdowns. Charles Sowie, the big play man, just 3 carries, but he hit over 100 yards and he scored 2 touchdowns. Corbin Eben, who was an All-Canadian last year, scored 2 touchdowns on the ground. And not to be outdone on the defensive side, defensive back Nate Gallant, 8 total tackles and 2 interceptions. So some individual highlights there as the Hilltops run roughshod over the Winnipeg Rifles, who, if you recall, actually beat the Toppers in week 1 of the season in Winnipeg. So my, oh my, how things change over the course of a season. And so again, it's the Hilltops and Regina in the PFC final. They split their head-to-head season series, each won by 3 points on the other team's field. So perhaps a good omen for the Toppers going down to Regina this weekend. It is a 1 o'clock kickoff on Sunday, October 26th at Mosaic Stadium. Good luck to the Toppers in the PFC final. That's what's going on with them. Oh, one more thing about the Toppers, actually, because they did also announce the PFC All-Stars this past week, and the Hilltops had 7 players on that list. Offensive lineman Jack Erlinson and Matt Elash, the aforementioned David Collins at running back. One of the other 2 Americans on the team this year, receiver Isaiah Valderuten, also an all-star. And then on the defensive side, defensive lineman Jonathan Stevens, who, if you recall, got a junior camp invite to Ryder Camp this past season. He made his 3rd straight trip to the all-star team. Linebacker Isaac McCalloch, also a 2nd straight selection. And defensive back Jace Mowles, rounding out the Hilltops all-stars this year. So lots to celebrate, and the Toppers are hoping to celebrate another PFC title this Sunday. That's what's going on with the blue and gold. We will stay with football and move over to the home residents of Griffith Stadium, the Saskatchewan Huskies, as we open up our Huskies rundown portion here of what's going on with a look at the football team that beat the UBC Thunderbirds last weekend out in Vancouver 24-10. They scored all 24 of those points in the second quarter, improving to 6-1 on the year. Their 4th straight victory was their 2nd straight game and victory with their backup quarterback, Jake Farrell, at the helm. He went 19 of 29 for 171 yards and 2 touchdowns, along with 2 interceptions in place of Anton Ammonrud, who missed the game before the Thanksgiving bye, and now this one as well. Now, head coach Scott Flory says that Ammonrud is kind of week to week, and they are hopeful that he will be back and ready to go, perhaps as early as this weekend. But certainly he was looking like a potential Crichton candidate before being sidelined, throwing 14 touchdowns and no interceptions in the first 5 games of the season. That candidacy, I think, has been put to bed now with him missing 2 games. Huskies receiver Daniel Weeb, though, he just might be their outstanding player, and he might be a potential for the nation's most outstanding player as well. He caught both of those touchdown passes from Jake Farrell last weekend, along with 7 other receptions for a total of 69 yards. Riker Frank cleared the century mark, 106 yards on 14 carries, and the Rough Riders prospect Seth Hundaby at linebacker, 6 total tackles, a strip sack, an interception, a couple tackles for loss in there as well. He was named Canada West Defensive Player of the Week, and big role in that victory. In fact, his interception set the Huskies up with a very short field in the second quarter, leading to one of their touchdowns. They got another one after a fake punt took them down inside the 5-yard line as well. So they had all the pieces of the team, all 3 elements, the components going in that win over UBC. And so it comes down to this weekend for the Huskies to secure top spot and home field advantage throughout the Canada West playoffs. All they need to do is beat the Manitoba Bisons on Saturday, 2 o'clock kickoff at Griffith Stadium. However, they might already have first place locked up by then. The Regina Rams, who also have a 6-1 record entering the final week of the regular season, they play on Friday afternoon. They host the UBC Thunderbirds. So if for some reason the 2-win T-Birds pull off the upset, and you never know in Canada West what might happen, then the Huskies will already have first place locked up by the time they take the field on Saturday. I think it's very unlikely that will happen, but just letting you know, there is a scenario in which they clinch first place before they even kick off that game on Saturday. So that's what's going on with Huskies football as they gear up for what they hope is a run right to the Vanier Cup in Regina next month. Staying with the Huskies, let's move to the soccer pitch. Women's soccer team, they're playoff bound this weekend. They will, we'll get to that in a moment. Let's tell you how they wrapped up their regular season last weekend at home. Actually, one game away and one at home. They had a home and home against the Regina Cougars. Now, unfortunately for the team, they lost the first game of that two-game set in Regina 1-0. Despite outshooting the Cougars 10-2 in the contest, they were held off the score sheet in a 1-0 loss, and that officially ended their chances of moving up in the standings, moving up above fourth place in the Prairie Division. They did bounce back with a 3-0 win over the Cougars on their home turf on Saturday on senior night, and it was one of their fifth-year players in Taryn Isaac who actually opened the scoring in that game. Cassidy Vieira and Marie Kilcher also found the back of the net in that 3-0 victory. Julie Snyder, who we mentioned a couple weeks ago, has taken over the goalkeeping duties. She picked up her third clean sheet in 4 starts late in the season. Only had to make 2 saves, still got it. The Huskies, so they, with that win and that loss, finished 8-5-1 on the year. As I mentioned, 4th in the Prairie Division. They actually improved their win total by 1 from last season, but their loss total actually went up 3, as 2 games that they drew last year ended up as losses this year. So they actually wound up 4th, which is lower than they finished last season. And they are in the playoffs, but they have a very daunting challenge ahead of them now. As if you watched our episode a couple weeks ago with Lee Cormish talking about the prospect of facing the defending national champions in the quarterfinals, that's exactly what the Huskies are up against, as they will travel out to Vancouver to take on the UBC Thunderbirds, who not only are undefeated, went 14-0 this season, they didn't concede a goal in their 14 matches. So, very tough test for the Huskies. The good news is they're the underdogs, clear-cut underdogs. Nobody's expecting them to go in there and beat the defending national champs, the unbeaten team that hasn't given up a goal all year. So they should be able to kind of relax and just play the way they want to play and see if they can pull up a huge upset and get their spot in the semifinal. That game is Saturday at 5 o'clock Pacific, 6 o'clock here in Saskatchewan. If you are going to watch it, you can find it on CanadaWest.tv as the Huskies look to pull off the upset against UBC in the Canada West quarterfinals. On the men's side, there will be no playoff soccer for the Huskies. They closed out their campaign with a pair of 1-1 draws on home turf last weekend. One of those against the Alberta Golden Bears in the annual Bateman Cup matchup, with Miskana Kilo scoring the Huskies' goal in that game. And then a 1-1 draw against the McEwen Griffins to close out the campaign on Sunday, with Ryan Coe scoring the Huskies' goal there. Saskatchewan finishes 3-7-4 this year as they actually they basically improved by 3 points in the standings from last year as they turned 3 losses into draws. They were 3-10-1 last year. Shift 3 of those losses into the draw column and you get this year's record. It's their 3rd straight year out of the playoffs, but I think there's a lot more optimism going into next year given how young this year's team is and some of the progress that they made this season, but still another year out of the playoffs for the men's team. Huskies volleyball teams, let's talk about them briefly. They opened their season last weekend on home court at the PAC. It was a tough opening weekend for both teams as they were swept by Alberta. The men coming into the year ranked 3rd in the preseason coaches poll in Canada West, but they lost 3-1 and then 3-0 to the number 5 ranked Alberta Golden Bears at home. And then the women also at home, who are ranked 7th going into the year in the Canada West coaches poll. They were lost in straight sets in the home opener on Friday night and then lost 3-1 on Saturday. Alberta's women's team, by the way, ranked number 1 in the conference in that coaches poll. So tough opening weekend, but it's a long season for both those teams coming off both teams going to nationals last year. They want to both get back there again. They will be on the road this weekend as they will take on the Mount Royal University Cougars. The Cougars men rank number 10 in the conference entering the season. The women rank number 8. So at least on rankings, certainly a winnable weekend for both Huskies teams on the volleyball court. Let's move to the ice as we keep our tour around Husky athletics going. The hockey teams had opposite outcomes last weekend against the Trinity Western Spartans. The men's hockey Dogs pulled off a sweep on the road in Langley. The first game, they needed overtime. They needed all 73, that's right, 73 shots that they took on Friday night against the Spartans. They set a program record for shots in a regular season game, but they needed every one of them because the 73rd shot was the winning goal in overtime, and also the first career U Sports goal for rookie forward Connor Roulette, the former Saskatoon Blade, who has spent the last couple years playing professionally in the ECHL. He's now with the Huskies. He got his first goal at a very key time, but yes, after 73 shots, second most ever. The only time they had more shots than that was in a double overtime playoff game in 2016. So 73 shots in a regular season game, a program record. They'd win that one 5-4 in overtime. Carter Stebbings, Dawson Holt, and Chanson Petruik with 2 were the other goal scorers in that game. And then it was far more one-sided in the rematch on Saturday. Huskies got another 60 shots in that game as they blasted the Spartans 7-0. Carter Stebbings and Chance Petruik, by the way, friend of the show, former guest right here. Both those players had hat tricks in that 7-0 win, and Connor Roulette had the other goal. Brian Thompson picked up his first career win and shutout in the Huskies net with a 34 save performance in the Saturday game. And Chance Petruik with those 5 goals in the 2 games. He also had an assist. That assist on Friday night was actually his 100th career regular season point. With that 6-point effort, including 5 goals, he's named Canada West Men's Hockey Player of the Week. The Huskies men now 3-1 on the young season. As for the women, I mentioned opposite outcomes, not quite polar opposites, but in the win-loss column they are, as the women dropped both their games at home against Trinity Western, albeit both games went to overtime. So they did get a couple of points, one for each of those losses. It was a 2-1 loss on Friday. Shelby Williamson actually scored the game tying goal in the third period to force overtime. Colby Wilson made 26 saves in defeat. And then probably a tougher one to swallow on Saturday as the Huskies jumped out to a 3-0 lead just over a minute into the second period, only to have the Spartans reel them back in and eventually win it 4-3 in overtime. But some milestone goals in that game. Kaysen Arani and Karamatenko each scoring their first U Sports goal. Paris Alexin, the veteran, back in the lineup after missing the opening weekend of the season due to injury. She also scored in that game, and Clara Juka was in net. She made 24 saves in defeat. So the Huskies women are now 1-1-2 to start the season, and both Husky teams face their provincial rivals this weekend in the latest installments of the U Prairie Challenge. It is home and home, as it always is with Regina. So the women will be in Regina on Friday, then home on Saturday. The men reverse that, and all 4 of those games are 7 o'clock starts, whether they be at Merlos Belcher Place or Cooperators Arena in Regina. That's what's going on with Huskies hockey. We got one more stop to make on our tour through Husky athletics. Actually, 2, Huskies wrestling. Yeah, the wrestling team. We get everything here on this show. The Huskies wrestling team opened their season, at least from a competitive standpoint, this past weekend out in Calgary at the Dino Open, where the men's team came out on top in the points tally, and the women finished second. On the men's side, they had one wrestler with a gold medal. That was one of their rookies, Takis Sembaleris. I hope I'm saying that at least somewhat correctly. Gold in the 72 kilogram class. On the women's side, I mentioned they finished second in the team standings, with the host Calgary Dinos finishing in first. But a couple of Husky women's wrestlers winning their weight classes as well. Fourth-year wrestler Maya Phillips, gold in the 83 kilo class, and rookie Alexis Lavers, gold in the 62 kilo class. And Phillips was actually named Canada West Women's Wrestling Athlete of the Week. She won her 3 matches in the Dino Open, one of them by pin and the other 2 by technical superiority, and she outpointed her opposition by a combined score of 30-2. That is dominance, no matter how you slice it. So Maya Phillips recognized at the conference level for her performance in helping the Huskies to a second-place finish on the women's side of the Dino Open, and the men coming out first at that meet. Their next meet comes in about a month's time. It'll be their duels and their Husky Open as well in late November. And one more Huskies team to stop on, and that is the basketball teams. Sorry, two teams, I guess, technically, as they open up their season this weekend. Canada West basketball kicking off this weekend at the Pack. Of course, the women's team, you know it. You love them. They're the defending national champions. Gage Grassick, Logan Reeder, Taya Demong, and the rest of them, they're back. The roster's almost identical to last year, which bodes very well indeed for the 25-26 season. And if you're going to get to one game this weekend, I might suggest getting down to the Pack Friday night, because, of course, they're going to be raising that national championship banner and the latest Canada West championship banner to the rafters. They're also having their ring ceremony. I've had a look at those rings. They are pretty sweet-looking deals indeed. So that's going to happen Friday night as both Husky basketball teams tip off against the MacEwan Griffins, also an opponent that presents an opportunity for both teams to potentially pick up a couple wins. The women, you can almost write it in ink right now. They demolished the Griffins last year by like 50 points in both their games. MacEwan won one game all of last season on the women's side. I don't expect that they have suddenly jumped up to be a contender this year. So I'm going to count that as 2 wins right out the gate for the women. The men, the men's team, which only won 5 games out of 20 last year, they're trying to continue their climb back up to a playoff contender. But MacEwan was just 2-18. So the men might have a couple winnable games there as well. Game times this weekend, the traditional start times, women going before the men on both Friday and Saturday night. 6 o'clock tip-off for the women's game, 8 o'clock or thereabouts for the men's on Friday, and then move that up an hour on Saturday, 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock-ish. Still need time for the teams to warm up. Sometimes it's more like 7:15 or 8:15, depending on the night. But those are your game times for Huskies basketball this weekend. All right, that is a whole lot of Huskies, but we're not done with what's going on, because I told you, it's October. There's a ton happening. Let's talk more hockey with the Saskatoon Blades. They won 2 of 3 games last week. They did have their 5-game win streak snapped with a 6-2 loss at home against the Moose Jaw Warriors on Friday night. Jack Kachkowski, Cooper Williams scored the Blades goals in that loss, but the Bridge City Bunch bouncing right back with 2 more wins the next 2 days as they avenged that defeat to Moose Jaw with an 8-5 win over the Warriors in Moose Jaw on Saturday. Kasdan Matthews, 2 goals and an assist. Braden Klimke, a goal and 2 assists to lead the point parade in that game. And then the Blades returned home and they defeated the Edmonton Oil Kings 4-3 on Sunday. Cooper Williams scored the game-tying goal with just over 3 minutes left in the third, and Hayden Harsani netted the winner with less than 5 seconds left in regulation. Very thrilling finish on Pokechek's birthday. Pokechek, this guy, yeah, it was Pokechek's birthday on Sunday too, so a fitting birthday gift for Pokechek. Huskies with a dramatic win over the Oil Kings, who are no slouches. In fact, they're the only team that is currently ahead of the Blades in the Eastern Conference standings. Saskatoon now 9-3 through their first 12 games, sitting second in the Eastern Conference. And now they head out on what is always a challenging trip, as they will take a tour through the U.S. division, which these days includes 6 teams. And that starts, they're going to play 4 times this coming week, kicking off Friday night in Everett against the Silvertips. They'll be in Portland on Saturday. Next Tuesday, they visit the Tri-City Americans, and then Spokane on Wednesday. And then they'll have 2 more dates on that trip the following weekend. So big test coming up for the Blades on the road. Always a challenge going into that U.S. division. A long bus trip it is indeed. So good luck to the Blades on that, which will be their longest road trip of the season. Let's stay with hockey and quickly talk about the Warman Wolverines. They made some more franchise history this past weekend, picking up their, some might say long-awaited first ever home victory, just their second win of the season. It came on the heels of a very rough night the night before. Friday night, they got dusted 8-2 on home ice by the Battleford's North Stars. North Stars scored 3 of their 8 goals shorthanded in that game, just to give you an idea of how tough a night it was for the Wolverines. That was their 6th straight loss, but they bounced back the very next night against the very same team, defeating the North Stars 4-3 in a shootout. And Riley Rich Holden scored twice. Kane Kennedy got a goal. And Oliver Nottingham, who was just made his Wolverines debut on the night before against the North Stars, he scored the only goal in the shootout in round 3 to lift the Wolverines to that first ever home win, their second overall. They now sit at 2-8-1 on the season. They got 2 more home games coming up this weekend. They will host the Melville Millionaires Friday night, 7 o'clock start at Warman Home Center Communiplex. And then the Yorkton Terriers are in town on Saturday. It is a 7:30 start for that one. That's pretty typical for those of you who are maybe trying to start plan out your schedule, get to a Wolverines game or two. Their Friday night home games are pretty much always at 7 o'clock, and their Saturday night games virtually always at 7:30. Just so you know, a little bit of information you might find useful. So the Wolverines get that skid snap. They get that first home win. Now they're going to try to build a winning streak with Melville coming to town on Friday. So that's what's going on with the Warman Wolverines. One last item before we wrap up this segment, which yes is going on pretty long here tonight. We want to congratulate our city high school soccer champions. They were crowned earlier this week. On the girls' side, St. Joseph Guardians defeating the Holy Cross Crusaders 1-0. And the boys' title went to the Centennial Chargers. They bounced St. Joseph 5-2. So both those teams will now look to chase a provincial title. And that happens this weekend. The boys' 5A provincial championships are taking place in Prince Albert. The girls' 5A championships right here in Saskatoon, Friday and Saturday. So check out the SSSAD website or the SHSAA website to get a schedule for that if you want to take in some high school provincial soccer championships this Friday and Saturday. Should be some pretty good weather for it as well, which is always good news at this point in October. So congratulations to the St. Joseph girls and the Centennial boys for winning those city championships. And that wraps up this edition of What's Going On. Stick around. Rylan Kleiter coming right up.
Good sport!
All right, time to welcome in this week's guest. And this is someone who's got a lot of hardware at the provincial curling level. Of course, 7-time junior champion at a couple different age groups here provincially. Also made his Brier debut earlier this year after winning his first tankard title. So the hits just keep on coming. Also getting involved in some mixed doubles as well. And he played a little football back in the day, too. So we're going to talk about all of that and more with Rylan Kleiter. Rylan, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
It's been a few years so since we used to chat, semi-regularly back when I was a working reporter. I'm not that anymore. But you're still very much a competitive curler. So I'm glad to see one of us has stuck to their thing here for a while. But yeah, I guess I want to start real quickly with the fact that you're just coming off your second Grand Slam of the season. So I want to start there, and then we'll kind of rewind from there. First year, really, where you're playing in multiple slams. So what is that like for you and your crew, kind of adjusting to the schedule and sort of the routine of playing in those big events?
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of adjustment for us. You're gone from a Monday till Sunday, so that alone, just balancing the work and stuff and training. For us too, it's just competing against the top teams around the world each and every day. So that's another big thing, just getting ourselves mentally ready to go each game and sort of turning the page each day to a new game. So
you're still a young guy. I mentioned all the junior titles. Those are a few years back now when we rewind, but you're still a young guy especially when you get into the senior level. I hate using that term, but professionally here, if you will. So what's that like now, getting into the slams on a regular basis, competing against some of these teams that I'm sure you've been, a fan of, or you've looked up to in some cases as you've come up through the ranks? What's that now to be competing against them on a regular basis?
Yeah, I think especially the first slam going into there, you're kind of just looking across the sheet. Like, this is somebody I grew up watching on TV all the time, but now we're starting to get a little bit more comfortable out there. And I think the key for us is just sort of dialing in, bringing it back to some more simplicity, I guess, and focusing on the little things and take care of all the little details that's what it takes to be a professional at that level. So
how much I'm curious, how much did these 2 events kind of help you as you begin to make that adjustment? One being, winning that Tier 2 title at the Tour Challenge last year, and then also, being in the Brier back in March. How much does that help you kind of get your feet under you at this level?
Yeah, I think that's huge. Any chance you can play against the teams that you're gunning to beat all the time, it's always good experience. And I think the Brier last year was huge for us, just getting to play in front of a big crowd. And we always have a lot of support in Saskatchewan too, so that's always exciting. And yeah, it's pretty fun representing the province on these tour events as well.
Do you have to remind yourself that, like, hey, we earned this, we're here, we're on this playing field with these other teams that have, you know, maybe a nationally big name recognition, in some cases the Gushus, the Jacobs, guys like that? Do you have to remind yourselves, like, no, we're not just here to, you know, soak it up, we're here to compete?
Yeah, definitely. And I think now that we kind of have our feet wet, we're in a spot now where we're looking to take it to that next level and really push some of these teams and hopefully start to beat them more often than not. So
how have these the few years, I guess, between winning all those junior titles and then kind of getting to the point now where you are, you know, based on your play, you're earning these opportunities to play in these big events. What were those? What was that process like for you to kind of build up your game as a team and get to this level now where you are have earned these opportunities? What did you have to do to kind of get to that point?
yeah, well, for me, actually, once we finished juniors, I stuck with football for another year. So I played Rams for another year, and then I kind of came back to the game. The team sort of stuck throughout, and what we had to do to get there is we were playing on different tour events around the country. So you have to play in these lower level events, collect points, and sort of build your way up. So you're playing, I think it was about 11, 12 weekends throughout the year. So you're gone most of the winter to try to build up these points. And it's a bit of a grind early on to try to get there.
And I mean, like I said, you win so many provincial championships at the junior level, and then it's almost like you're resetting though, right? You're going up a level, and now you got to learn how to beat teams at this level now. So what was that process like in terms of adjusting to the level of competition and sort of learning how to play at this level?
Yeah, I just kind of like alluded a bit before, but it's kind of those details. And I think it kind of comes down to learning how to balance like your job and these other things in your life to be able to put in the time to train. I think a lot of these other teams that are older, like 5-10 years older than us, they've sort of have it figured out already where they're able to put in 20, 30, 40 hours a week on curling alone, right? Instead of having to kind of focus on work and curling. So I think we're kind of figuring out that balance now with our careers and our lives. And yeah, it's kind of coming together.
It is. Because unfortunately, it's not like a Scotland situation where you can just not work and get paid to be a professional. Although that may be coming just around the horizon. We know there's a pro league launching just next year. We'll ask you about that a little bit later on. But in terms of just, you know, you talk about the balance, getting all that stuff kind of squared away. Now you, as I said, you played the first 2 slams this season. How would you assess your performance collectively, individually at these first 2 slams this year?
Yeah, I think the first one was a bit of a learning. We're just kind of getting still used to it, but the second one, the team played great, honestly. I got to step up my game a little bit here, but the team played great, and they set us up in some good spots against some good teams. So I think if we can just build off that and keep giving ourselves opportunities to beat these teams, we're gonna capitalize.
And you may, and when you say you got to step your game up, are you talking about the calling, the shot making, a little bit of both? Like where in that sort of equation do you feel like you need to kind of level up a little bit?
Yeah, I think a little bit more in the shot making. We have great strategists throughout our whole team. All 4 of us understand the game really well, and I think that's kind of what's allowed us to take a step to this level, maybe compared to some other peers in our age group. But I think just sort of, yeah, we have the strategy, we have the other extracurriculars, I guess, and then just honing in on those fine details of skills with throwing and shot making.
It is, because it's insane how good the players are now at this level. Like, I mean, they've always been good, but I mean, when you watch, you know, a Bruce Mowat, and just the way that team almost never misses a shot, right? It's like you know you have to bring your absolute best to just even give yourself a chance, right? Mm-hmm. What's that like competing against some of those teams that are just like, I mentioned Mowat, but I mean Jacobs has been on a heater the last couple of years as well. You guys beat Gushu in this last slam. What does beating a team like that do for the confidence?
Yeah, it's huge. Like, we've had a couple notable wins. We beat Mowat earlier and beat Gushu obviously in the last slam, and I think that just sort of shows where we're at and shows our potential and where we can get to with just a little bit more consistency and training and practice.
It is that C word right there. Yeah. I was going to say, it's that consistency thing. You talk about the team. We want to obviously mention the rest of the team. Trevor Johnson at lead, Josh Mattern at second, Matthew Hall at third. Now, 2 things on that. I understand Josh and kind of recently swapped roles. When did that happen? Was that prior to the season or just prior to the last event? When did you guys make that change?
Yeah, it was just prior to the last event, actually. Yeah, we just decided to make that change. Give Josh a few extra rocks, judging the last 4 rocks to get a little bit more out of those rocks. And Matt was already holding the broom in the house, so just that from the strategic aspect, like he's already got a great mind for the game. So it didn't really take much, and he was already kind of back there to help me out.
So when you're I'm always curious about this because every team has its own dynamic, but when you guys are making a decision like that, how do you arrive at it, and how is it kind of received, I guess, especially by the players who are involved in switching roles like that?
Yeah, we're fortunate. We have 4 players who are all great athletes and just want the best for the team. But ultimately, it came down to our coaches. So we have Dean and John, and then Daryl, Curling Canada coach, and they all kind of consulted and then sort of brought the idea forth with the members, and then we discussed it. And yeah, it takes a lot of professionalism. It's not like a football team where the coach just says, this is who's playing and that's it. Curling's a little bit more, you kind of have a collective decision. So.
Yeah. And, and of course the chemistry and everyone being on the same page is so critical when you're out there in a game, and you got to make quick decisions, and that same dynamic is at play once again. You mentioned the coach. I want to get to that in a second, but I mentioned, the members of your team. You, Trevor, and Josh have been playing together for a really long time. And that is, especially these days, very abnormal for teams at your level, because we've seen now in the last couple of cycles, teams' personnel are changing almost annually or every couple of years to try to find that right mix. So what is it about the 3 of you, especially? Obviously, Matthew's been with you for a little while now, but the 3 of you in particular, how have you been able to remain together for so long, and how important is that to you?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is that we all have the exact same goal in mind. Like, we're all working hard to push to play at the professional level consistently. And then we're also great friends off the ice. Like, we'll get together, watch the Blue Jays game, watch a football game. So I think all those things, we just enjoy being together. So that's a key thing that has kept us together.
And yeah, because like, do you appreciate, or do you kind of take pride in the fact that the 3 of you in your longevity, 1G, by the way, for anyone who's been online the last couple of days, only 1G. You only say it with 1G. But do you take pride in that? Because, like I said, like so many other teams, I mean, there are maybe duos that have been together for a long time, but to have 3 members of the same team together for well over a decade, that is, again, that's a rarity. So how much pride do you take in that?
Yeah, we take a lot of pride, and it honestly, it keeps the culture together of what our team wants to be as well. You have people that are buying in, and that's kind of the main thing. You look at a lot of other professional sports organizations, and they usually have a key core that sort of sticks together, the key core that drives the culture and the path, I guess, of the team. And it's been something that we've been very fortunate for, and all living in the same area too, and stuff like that. So.
It's another thing that's so different about today's game is how many teams are spread out across the country, and so that really should be able to give you some kind of a competitive edge that you can get more ice time together, right, throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And Matt moved over from Ontario to play with us, so having him here has been huge because we can go out right after work, get a practice in, and yeah.
So tell me about how you guys ended up with Matt on the team. How long has he been with you, and and how did that kind of come together?
Yeah, we're on to year number 3 now, and how I knew Matt, well, we played against each other at a few junior nationals, so we kind of knew of each other. And then in 2019, I went as the 5th man to the World Juniors, and Matt was on that team playing second for Tyler Tardy. And then, so we built a little bit of a relationship, and when Matthew Tyon, our other lead, had stepped away for work commitments, we brought in Matt Hall. And yeah, it was a seamless fit, and he's added a lot of value to our team. It
does. It gives you that little extra, I want to call refresh or whatever you call it. You keep consistent with the other guys. You maintain that history, but to have a little something else, right, to get you maybe provide a little spark with that change. Did you find that happened with adding Matthew to the lineup?
Yeah, great another perspective into the game, and he was able to pick on maybe some things that we maybe oversaw when we were all sticking together, and it was just helped us not become complacent and to keep pushing us to the next.
All right, you listed off your coaches all by first name, and of course you kind of glossed over the fact that one of those is your father, Dean Kleiter. And, you now share the fact that you've both been at a Briar, but I mean, you got one little one over him because you went as the skip of the Saskatchewan team. I know you went a couple times as a fifth back in the day as well. Anytime you get to go is a great big deal. I'm obviously teasing a little bit there, but what's that dynamic like? Because I mean, I'm sure Dean, he's the one who got you involved in this sport in the first place. So after all these years, that you're still able to hear him as coach, or like, can you differentiate? How does that play out for you guys?
Yeah, I think over the years we've done really well. When we're on the curling ice, like he's coach, and he doesn't give any special treatment to me or to the other players or vice versa to kind of, it's a really good balance. I will say though, you still go home and you're still talking curling at the kitchen. So that part doesn't change, but we are good at separating it.
It does blur it a little bit more. So what was that like for you to get to go to the Briar this year, knowing, your dad had that opportunity a couple times as well, but, for you to now share that with him, but also just in general, what was it like just to get that chance?
Yeah, I remember as a kid asking my teacher to put on the live stream of the Tankard to watch my dad in provincials in elementary school, and just like seeing the pride, and each time that a team won and their representation of the province, there's just a sense of pride that comes with representing Saskatchewan and the long history of the sport in the province.
Obviously, you got to do it a number of times at the junior level, but what's it like? What's the difference, or is there a difference when you get those green jackets and you put those on for the first time at the Briar?
Yeah, it's definitely different. As soon as you're on TSN, people start to look at the sport a little differently as well. So that was pretty exciting, and the first time you see your jacket and put it on, it's something special.
I mean, it's no easy feat just to win the Tankard. We know how competitive the curling is in this province. So what did that mean to you because you'd been in the final the year before, to then get back to the final and to win it, and to know that you were going to be making that trip and you were going to be doing that, coming out of a province that is so crazy about this sport?
Yeah, then there was a lot of ups and downs in that Tankard as well. We had a few losses for sure, and just stuck together. And yeah, we put together a special game in the final, something that is just once again shows sort of our potential of where we can play and what we can do with this sport.
Now that you've done it once, now is that the bar now, or you go, okay, now you come into each season going, okay, we know we've been there, so now we gotta get back. How much does that fuel you now?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of fuel. We want to get back there for sure, and it's all about just kind of taking it one day at a time and sort of doing the process right from the start of the season till the end of the season until we get there.
And it strikes me that this year in particular, you've got to maybe, I don't know, how do you have to compartmentalize your goal setting almost, because you've got slams, you've got, obviously what you want to do, get to the Briar again, and then we've got the Olympic trials, which are coming up for you in basically a month, that you're going to be in those as well. So how do you approach a season like this when there are all these different sorts of measuring sticks and big events on your schedule? How do you kind of manage all of that?
Yeah, so for us, we kind of take it back to the basic and look at which events do we want to peak in and which events are we sort of building in. So obviously the slams, we want to do well and have a good showing because there's points on the table, etc. But we still have the trials circled and the provincials circled as our two big events. So we'll plan our practicing and taper our training as well, our off-ice training, to sort of get ourselves bodies and minds ready to go for those events.
Because, I mean, we know the field for the trials, other than the last team, which is actually the pre-trial event. The last qualifying team is going on this week as we record this episode, in fact, both men's and women's. And we've got a couple of local teams in the mix on the women's side. But, knowing the bulk of that field and teams that you're obviously familiar with, is there any sort of game planning for specific opponents or anything like that? Do you get right into the details like that far into it, or is it fully focused on your own game?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, we're going to focus on our game. That's kind of the key, but definitely as we're playing them on slams, we're taking notes, we're tracking how they're going to play us in certain situations and what we sort of can find in weaknesses in their game to sort of play our game accordingly. So yeah, we're definitely taking notes as the season goes on.
Without giving away any state secrets here, is there a style or a type of approach or a philosophy that you have as a team of the way that you want to play, or that if you are playing a certain way that you feel you have the greatest chance of success?
Yeah, I think our key thing is sort of sticking together and sort of building each end. And right at the start, like just really going into the game with a lot of confidence. And yeah, that's all I'll kind of get into for now though.
That's fair. That's fair. I would imagine too that like game to game, depending on your opponent, depending on maybe how you're throwing or how different rocks are playing, you're probably going to make adjustments from game to game too, right? Like,
Absolutely. Yeah. Even like event to event, sometimes you're playing that first game in event and you're still learning the ice, learning the rocks. So you might sort of play a little bit different. The key thing is just trying to, my job as the skip is try to give the other guys the best chance to make their shot, whether it's something a path that we've seen before or just an easier shot basically to make sure that they're successful out there.
given that you're getting to play these slams here leading up to the trials, how much is that playing on that arena ice helpful?
Yeah. Oh, it's huge. It's huge. Like it's a big difference compared to playing. I mean, Nutana's as close as you can get to arena ice. So we're very fortunate we get to practice on that all the time. But definitely helps playing on arena ice. For sure.
Is still Corey still running the show over there? Or
Yep, Corey's running the show and Lawrence is the ice maker.
There we go.
So,
Shout out to Corey Coach and Lawrence. Last name escapes me at the moment.
Kucherin.
There we go, Lawrence Kucherin. Shout out to them because that is. I mean, you ask anyone who comes here for events who is not from here, and they'll tell you the Nutana is one of the best clubs in a lot of ways here in the country. But ice is right at the top of that list for sure. So obviously a very, very busy schedule, but as you alluded to earlier, you're not a full-time professional curler. You've got a job too. You're an accountant. So how do you, I guess maybe you're a details guy. So are you doing a lot of the logistical planning, or how do you fit all this in a season where you've got a lot of big events on the schedule? How do you make sure you're getting that balance and you're not burning yourself out, week to week?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the key thing is just relying on the support that we have. So John Mattern, who's Josh's dad, is our manager, and he kind of looks after the bookings and sort of taking care of that side of things. So sort of take some time pressure off of ourselves, and having a super supportive employer. That's a key thing too. I'm very fortunate with EY and all the support they've given me, and the other guys can speak to the same for their companies that they work for.
Ernst & Young, if you want to give
Ernst
them a shout
Young.
out, we can do that.
There
We're
you
not
go.
going to run afoul of any other advertisers or that sort of thing for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be so vital to be able to, yes, you got, like you were saying with slams, I mean, you need a full week at a time. And then sometimes this slam schedule this year especially is quite condensed. So it's almost like you're going from one to the next practically. So yeah, it's good to know that they've got your back there for sure. While we're on the topic of slams, it's been interesting to watch these last couple of years because obviously the ownership changed hands prior to last season with the curling group taking over, and they have not been shy about throwing in some wrinkles for you guys and gals. Almost every event, there's something new to deal with. There's been some, they tinkered with a rule last year, which saw that if you blanked 2 ends in a row, you had to give up the hammer. That was changed. Now, this past event you played where you only got 1 blank end per game. So, and that was kind of a trial run for that rule change, if you will. I guess, first of all, how did you find it? And did it have any significant or notable effect on your strategic approach?
Yeah, definitely. So originally, actually, I run a local event, the Best of the West in Saskatoon.
Yes, great event.
So we trialed that rule actually at that event last year. So I think that idea kind of came from that event as well. So for us, I was able to watch how it unfolded, and the biggest difference is you just have to start right away. You can't take your time. You just have to be ready to go right from the start. And for us, it didn't change our strategy a ton, but it was nice in the fact that you knew teams weren't just going to be able to blank the whole game.
Yeah,
There's always a chance.
It felt like in the last few years, it started to become more and more prevalent to see 2, 3, sometimes 4 ends out the chute all blanked, and understandably because that hammer is so valuable. So how do you like this better than the 1 blank per game compared to the rule they tried last year with the you blank 2 in a row, you give up the hammer? How would you compare those two kind of approaches?
I like this. I like the new rule a little bit better actually than the other one. I think this one actually promotes a little bit more aggressive play, more rocks in play, and just more exciting overall to watch.
Yeah, we should say like a lot, most if not all of these rule changes or at least trials are predicated on the idea of creating as much entertainment as possible, right? For fans. I know also they're trying to maybe shorten the games a little bit so that we get into those broadcast windows. The 2-hour broadcast window is so valuable, and that's why a lot of the events, the Grand Slam events, are eight ends instead of 10 now. How do you feel about 8 versus 10?
Yeah, I think 8 is great. Like we've played 10 a lot over the years, and the same thing happens. There's usually like 3 or 4 blanks anyways, so you're just kind of delaying it and lengthening the game for not a ton of benefit. And as players, we like 8 ends typically too.
Now, one of the ones, and I don't know if you had, I don't think you had this at the Tour Challenge, but at the Masters you did with the shootout. So no extra ends, and going to a draw to the button, skip versus skip, basically. I didn't have a chance to look back. Did you get into any of those at the Masters, or if not, or what's your take on that? I guess, and experience if you have experienced that.
Yeah, we got into one against Bruce Mowat actually.
Okay.
So that was when we played him, and we really like that rule too. I would say because the extra ends, they're like 80-90% win with hammer. So it gets kind of boring to watch. It gets honestly kind of boring to play almost if you already kind of know the outcome just with everybody's shooting abilities. There's still always a chance for sure, but I think the draw to the button it brings everybody in to have to focus on that one shot, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I did find a lot of times you see that extra end and it'd be just like, okay, peel, and then it's just like, okay, the last shot is either, depending on where that last rock ends up. I mean, I guess you're playing either a draw to the 4 or, a hit and stick or something like that. And I mean, in the end, right, you got to make a shot to win a game. You got to make a shot to win a game, but I guess so is a draw to the button.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of teams used to plan to just have hammer in the extra end. So it has changed some strategy into how teams play as
just
well.
Big picture wise, how do you feel about sort of this experimentation, if you will, with all these sort of tweaks to the rules? I mean, you're still kind of gaining your foothold at this level, and how do you? I just you have to adjust to these on the fly, as do all these other teams as well. But maybe there's a little bit less of like, well, I'm used to doing it this way, even though you've played for a long time. So just in general, how do you feel about the willingness of not only sort of organizers of events to do these sorts of things, but also what have you seen from other teams and players and sort of the acceptance of these tweaks and changes?
Yeah, I would say definitely the younger teams really like it. Like it's exciting. I really like what they're doing with the game. I think it's exciting. You're trying to get some more more eyes on it. You need more of the casual fans watching rather than the diehard fans. They're going to watch regardless, right? So no, I think it's great for the game to keep kind of evolving. You look at all the other sports, even the NFL this year, they're still changing rules all the time. So
not to say nothing of the CFL, as well,
too.
And which I think, but it's an interesting, I think, point of comparison in terms of how these rule changes or modifications are being rolled out in your sport versus the way the CFL kind of just like dumped a batch of changes on the public and just said this is what's happening. I think it's an interesting exercise maybe in communications strategies as well. That's not a question for you. That's a little observation for me, but it's just kind of funny to compare it because we've kind of seen we're going to try a rule at this event. We're going to just try it. We're going to get feedback on it. We're going to maybe try this at this event. We're going to use this season, but it's not set in stone. Pardon the pun. So I just think I agree. I think it's a good time for an evolution in the sport to, keep that fresh and keep that interest in there. When you've got, some, mixed doubles and some things that are already almost designed for more of a TV product, and now you've got, you need to take that traditional kind of version of the game and make it a little bit more easy to consume for that casual fan. So I think it's really interesting. Your thinking time has also been being whittled away here. You were down to just 30 minutes, I think, for this last event. I know it's like only 1 minute less than you had the previous event, but that was 2 minutes less than the one before that. So it's been kind of, how do you find that? Does that keep you a little bit more on your toes, or do you find that like you're already kind of going in with a game plan? Has it had a significant effect?
It actually hasn't. Surprisingly enough, we didn't really notice it too much in that last event. We try to play pretty quick in general. I'm sure there's some teams that are struggling a little bit. But even just with mixed doubles experience, I'm used to having to just go fast and get it done. So, yeah.
That's true. I wonder how Kevin Cooey feels, but I don't. He's one of those guys that's often running up against the clock there. It's no slight on him. He's just, very thoughtful, always considering a lot of elements there. Is one guy that comes to mind there. Before I get off the rules talk, I also know World Curling kind of tightened its parameters around the brooms, and that was a big discussion point last season, with some changes happening. In fact, like day of one of the Grand Slams, and I know there was at least one team that got rubbed a little raw by that. So essentially, what can you maybe give us the basics of sort of what the rule is and why it was kind of adjusted by World Curling? If you can try to whittle that or boil that down for us.
Yeah, like you're talking about the new rule this year.
Yeah,
correct?
Yeah.
So the new rule this year that came into effect just like a couple weeks ago is there was some teams using some padding that was really dirty, and it was actually like breaking down the pebble and melting the ice. So by the third, fourth end, your speed would be like cut off by half a second. So you'd have to throw an extra 8 feet. So it was basically deteriorating the ice and just was not a fair playing surface for both teams.
So essentially what it meant is there's a certain type of foam, right?
Okay.
Is that what we're talking about?
Sorry, that was last year actually. At the end of last year, they switched out the foams. So there was a different type of foam last year, but just this year they switched that up. So I can bring it back to the foam though. Yeah, the foam last year. So there was a harder foam that was being used, and it was within the specifications originally that World Curling put out, and it was able to drag the rock further and make it curl more or less just based on the density of the foam. So that was the key thing. And now they've brought it back to a point where it has a little bit less effect than it had last year.
And all this equipment gets trialed out. Like there's a lot of curlers will get together and trial these different pieces of equipment. But essentially what it means is now you know exactly what's allowed, what's not. And so there might be some teams having to adjust their gear a little bit, but I'm guessing you guys were already within the specs, or did you have to get some switch out your brooms? Or
they actually got rid of even the hardline foam they had a competitive foam and a recreational foam. So the competitive foam was allowed last year and we used that, and then now it's back to recreational foam only. So we've switched back to that, but that's what we used to use for years and years.
So is there still a little bit of variation? Like are there still a couple of different options that you have that you could choose from the foam or the broom head covers?
Yeah. The broom head covers are all the same. They have to be the exact same material, but the foams, technically from company to company, you could select different foams, but they're all within a parameter of testing now that they're all really close.
I was last year. I got a little insect friend on my notes here. Not to get too deep into it, but we were, I was writing for a curling show last year, so I was in the weeds with a lot of that stuff last year as well, kind of just trying to get read up on that as well. So always trying to ensure that you guys have the best chance to do what you want, but also to keep the competitive balance fair, right? Essentially, that's the goal of all this stuff, right? Yeah,
like eventually it was to the point where even if you were a mediocre to below average sweeper, you're able to do some really crazy things to the rock. So it just, it levels out the playing field and sort of makes the good sweepers good, I guess.
All right, talking about crazy things to do with rocks. LB, you want to cue this up here because, I think this is a good time to show this. It was just acknowledged shot of the week. I know this is going back a few. We have it on our monitors here, but this is quite the shot here this is from the Masters, right? So the first Grand Slam of the season. So take me through this. This is fourth end, and what led you to decide to do this and as we watch it play out here?
Yeah, definitely. This is a shot that we actually practice a little bit to make sure we're ready in these situations. So it's nice to go out there throwing it and not having a complete guess. I at least knew what I was doing a little bit. So there wasn't really any other options out there, and like I've said, we practiced it, so we knew it was there and gave it a good go, and the sweepers did a great job sort of guiding it in there.
Even though we've been in real deep into the curling talk here, obviously, if you are watching this and you're not a typical curling fan, that is not how you usually release a rock. For those of you who've not watched a lot of curling with that amount of spin. So that was what made this shot so unique. Was there anyone, I've seen Nick and Dean do this in the past. Was there anyone that you had watched do it and you kind of like, oh, we should get I got to get that in my bag. Like,
Yeah, I think the nicotine shot, exactly that. We saw that and we're like, whoa, there's something to be done here. Like it's something you can do something different, I guess, with the rock and the rotation. So
does that come from just kind of playing around at a practice and you're just like kind of having fun with your teammates? Like, oh, let's see what kind of trick shot or whatever I can pull off here. And then you do it and you're like, oh, maybe we should file that away. Like how does it go from, kind of playing around on the practice ice to like pulling it out of your bag of clubs, so to speak, in a competitive setting like that?
Yeah, I'd compare it to like a trick play in football. Like it's something that you don't want to have to use all the time, but you have it there just in case for a certain situation, right? So I think that's the best comparison. So you practice it, you know how to do it, but you're not going to use it every day, kind of thing.
And do you have to know you have a rock that's going to do it too? Like you obviously you've mapped out your rocks, so you've got the 6 stone or whatever, whichever one it is. Like, throughout the competition or however many games you played, is that part of the equation as well?
That's a great point. Yeah, like to be honest, at a curling club, that would generally be a lot tougher to do. But with arena rocks that are sharp, just recently sharpened and curl a lot more, you'll get a lot of finish with that shot.
I was just wild. Like it wasn't I was about the 5th or 6th time watching that when I really noted where the rock was when it crossed the hog line. like from way out in the wings, just that finish come from the hog line in is just wild to me. And obviously that has to do with the pace that you're throwing it with as well, because that's probably the key to the whole thing, right? Is the weight.
Yeah, the weight, and then the spins just get that extra curl in there. It delays the curl so it comes in harder at the end.
Now you don't do the sweeping, but how much more challenging is it to sweep a rock like that? Because you guys almost overbrushed it to the point where you almost didn't get the counter. But how much of a challenge is that for your sweepers?
Yeah, like when you're standing over the rock and it's spinning that much, it looks like it's just going to stop. Yeah. So it's so tough to stay off of that rock and just wait for it.
I was laughing because I was like, oh, we're just getting this coming out now. It was like a month ago, but you got a little scratch for that too, didn't you? You get some money for getting shot of the week?
Yeah. I think I just found out today actually. So that good little bump for the team budget there.
Hey, anytime that you can get a few more bucks coming your way in this sport, that is a good thing. That's, I think, just shows another way that this, the slam ownership now is really, really trying to inject that kind of stuff into the game. And really, even in that sense, it's like, yeah, we got plays of the week. We've got highlights to show you. And we're going to reward teams for doing stuff like that too. I think it's great. I think it's a great initiative. But yeah, like I said, let's get that out a little more promptly, shall we? Maybe after the slam in which it happened. I'm just saying. No, it's good stuff. All right, trials. I want to talk quickly about the trials because they are coming up in about a month, as I mentioned. And I'm just going to list the teams we do know that are going to be there in addition to yourself. Dunstone, Epping, Gushu, Jacobs, Cooey, McEwen, and then plus one more we're going to find out here in a few days. That's a murderer's row, a who's who, and then you're on there as well. So you're in that group. What is your approach? How are you kind of thinking about this trials going up with this opportunity to get there and who knows what might happen that week and get a chance to represent the country at an Olympic Games?
Yeah, I think for us, I kind of alluded to before, but just focus on basics and don't make the moment like too big and really just embrace it, enjoy it, and take it one shot at a time and one end at a time. Because for us, with the amount of work we're putting in, it's all going to be about consistency and just it's a long week, so we know if we stick it out, we're gonna be in a good spot by the end of the week.
You qualified based on essentially your rankings, right, from last season. So at what point exactly did you know that you were going to be in the trials field?
Yeah, we actually didn't know until the last event of the year. We had we were playing McDonald in the final in the Swift Current Bonspiel. So it was right before the men's worlds, actually. So there was a lot of men's worlds team there as well, and we were playing McDonald in the final, and that was the game that it was us or them going to the trials. So It kind of came down to the last game of the year.
Did you know before that game that was at stake, or did you find out afterwards?
No, we knew before, but it was actually the semifinal, I should say. So the semifinal, once we won the semifinal, we knew we had enough points where they couldn't catch us at the end of the year. So
still, that just adds a whole other element of pressure, does it not? I mean, last event of the year, what was that like, knowing that was dangling there in front of you as you're not only trying to win an event that week, but also knowing, hey, if we win this semifinal, we're going to the trials.
Yeah, no, it was definitely, there was a little bit of added pressure, and this was all after the Brier as well. So we came back from that event and said we got to refocus and bounce back, and we put together a couple good events to finish off the season to get that done.
That must be, I mean, where does that rank, just getting into that event, where does that rank at this point in your career in terms of accomplishments, just qualifying for, it's only an 8-team field, and it's the best of the best in Canada. So where does something like that rank at this point in your career?
Yeah, it's definitely up there. I'm just proud of the guys, and like I said, it's a lot of hours and a lot of work put in. So yeah, it's definitely one of the best accomplishments for sure for this team.
So how much are you, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, but how much are you using these slams in terms of just sort of sizing up? I mean, you know all the teams that are going to be there, you know them well, but to see them up close in the immediate couple months leading up to the event, to sort of see how they're playing, what they're doing, how valuable is that?
Yeah, I think it's just huge. Like I said, we've been watching them play, and when we play against them, we sort of take some notes down, jot some things down to sort of for the future when we're going to play them at this event. And it also just allows us to get more comfortable playing these teams. And yeah, we watched them on TV growing up, but now you're playing against them every weekend, so it's going to become sort of more normal as you go.
Was it the last trials that were in Saskatoon, or was that two cycles ago? I'm trying to recall.
The last trials,
yeah.
yeah.
Did you get a chance to attend, or were you in the building for any of those?
I didn't attend that one. I can't remember why not. But
I was gonna say, but you probably had something else on your plate, as busy as you are. I was gonna ask how that environment may have compared to a Brier atmosphere, because I've heard players who have competed in both say that there's nothing like a trials atmosphere and environment. So, how much does having played in a Brier, do you think that is going to prepare you for what's to come here in Halifax?
Yeah, I think it was huge. They had some good crowds last year in Kelowna, and being able to play in front of friends and family and things like that. But I think all of those moments and just the learning in each game that we played is going to play a big factor in the trials.
I briefly mentioned it. There's a professional league launching next year, or launching in April, I guess. Rock League, and this is the curling group running this show as well. I know initially it's kind of got an international kind of element to it. I think 2 Canadian teams, is it 2 American teams, or 1 American, 1 European, 1 Asian, or something like that, men's and women's. So on a sort of a theoretical basis, what do you think about the concept, and is that something that you and your team aspire to maybe be part of and play on in an actual professional league?
Yeah, I think it's great for the sport. I think it's been a lot of years coming to try to get it to that professional level, and I'm kind of hoping that this will be sort of the kickstart to build something where maybe one day it can be your profession to sort of chase your dreams and play week in, week out. And yeah, I think it's something great. It's something that I for sure aspire to play in, and I'm sure the team does as well. But yeah, something that I'd be working hard to try to get to.
Yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I think it's really, again, it's been really interesting to see what the curling group has been doing here these last couple of years. I mean, there's been other people involved in some of these evolutions as well, but they really hit the gas pedal on a lot of this stuff. And I think there's a lot of energy behind it right now in the sport, and it's really cool to see that. Okay, now before we get off the curling, you mentioned it. You're also in mixed doubles. You play with Brittany Tran. How did that partnership come together? I guess I should ask, because it's a new season. Are you still going to be playing together, or because I know those pairings can change from year to year as well? And how have you found that, and how does that fit into the rest of your competitive schedule? How has that helped you maybe in the 4-man game?
Yeah, last year was great. We had a great run last year. Me and Brittany, and sort of just she was playing on Saskatchewan team at that time. Sort of knew her from the tour and stuff from playing in various events. She's a great player, and yeah, but we aren't going to play together this year just because I wanted to focus on the trials and the 4-person curling. So took a step back from doubles this year, but I do really think that it really complements and benefits my game. Just getting those extra rocks. You kind of have to figure out how to make shots by yourself a little bit too, so it makes you better in that regard, where you have to focus that little bit extra.
I bet the guys are like, "Oh yeah, you can sweep too. Can you sweep?" Hey, the rest of your teammates are like, "Hey, look at Kleiter, he can sweep."
Well, they still give me a hard time though.
Yeah, your technique. You're getting pointers on your technique.
Exactly.
Yeah, gotta lean. You gotta get over the head of that brush a little bit more. As I was asking the question, I was like, I bet you're probably taking a bit of a breather from mixed double, given all that's on your plate this season. But I guess we shouldn't. I mean, in all this talk of the trials, you did play in the mixed doubles trials as well. So you've had a bit of a precursor as well, albeit at the mixed doubles level. And you guys did pretty well there too, made a pretty good run. What was that event like? And just getting a chance to sort of get that first sort of trials experience at the mixed doubles level.
Yeah, the host committee was great there. We had some good crowds as well, and like I was kind of alluding to before, it's a pretty long week when you're playing in these events. So the key is just staying fresh and being ready to go at the end of the week when the games really, really matter. So no, we did a great job. We put that team together a year or a little bit less than a year before the trials. So to come out and get fourth at that event was definitely an accomplishment for us. Would have been nice to win it all, but yeah, it was a good stepping stone and learned a lot from that event.
Well, and you qualified by winning an event, right? You won one of the pre-qualifier events to get in there. So, I mean, it's one thing, obviously, your consistent performance to get there by your points, but to actually win an event to earn a spot, that's just something as well about your kind of readiness to compete too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, played phenomenal, and just when our backs were against the wall backs against the wall in that game, it was nice to come out on top in that one.
All right, a lot of curling talk, but as you have also referenced, this is not the only sport that you played, although it's the one you're playing now. I guess you're not playing football anymore, but 4-time Canadian Bowl champion with the Saskatoon Hilltops, and also a year with the University of Regina Rams, kicking and receiving. Now that you're kind of done with football, but as you look back on that, how did you kind of balance all of that?
Yeah, it was a lot. I remember I wouldn't step on the curling ice until probably November, till almost the season was over when I was younger, and it was a lot just with school and football and curling. I enjoyed every minute of it, though. It was a lot of fun, and I don't miss being out in the cold practicing though at this time of year.
Well, especially for the kickers, that practice field can be pretty lonely for the kickers. You're the first one out sometimes, and you're sometimes the only one out there for a while. Everyone else is watching video or something. But I mean, you're a special teams player of the year in the PFC. You're a CJFL All-Star. So do you miss the kicking or the receiving? Do you miss either of that more than the other, or like? I mean,
that's a good question. I actually really enjoyed doing both. Like when I was playing with the Hilltops, I was kind of doing both. So I wasn't just standing on the sidelines getting cold. I was still able to run around and stay warm, playing receiver. So yeah, I would say both of them pretty equal for me.
So as a former kicker, and you watch the Riders have been going through it this year from the place kicking department, and I know that you're very close with the long snapper, Jorgen Hoos. He's an in-law of yours. As a former kicker, though, were you ever like watching, going like, "Oh, we could do this differently or that differently," or do you ever get into those conversations with Jorgen, or do you keep that stuff separate?
I think it's pretty separate, and he's pretty good at focusing on his job and sort of doing his part. And I've gone out and practiced with him and trained with him too, and yeah, just a great professional. Like takes care of all the little things, and yeah, really detailed.
I bet there's a lot of empathy for a guy like Brett Lother when you see, he has a few games where he's a little bit below what we've come to expect from him, and as a guy who used to do that, can you maybe give us a sense of what that is like? Because it is a lonely role at times, and when the ball's on your foot, you got your snapper, you got your holder, but not a lot of people think about that when the kick goes wide, right? They think about who put their foot on it. So what goes through your mind when you see a guy, in the CFL or anywhere that's maybe going through a little bit of a slump like that?
Yeah, I feel like that's sort of part of the job, honestly. Like that you're gonna have games where, yeah, everybody's gonna want you off the team, but then you're also gonna have games where you're the savior, right? So he's kicked some really big field goals in some big games. I still see him running into Pill Country after that kick on was that Labor Day weekend, I think. Yeah. So you know it's there, and you know that a guy like that, he's going to be able to bounce back and sort of come back.
Well, and as I was saying throughout it, I mean, not that it matters what I was saying, but I just, it's like, you come playoff time, I know who the guy's going to be. They get, they brought another guy in, he's already been released. They brought another guy in, he's not playing. He's the guy they're gonna go with. I think the Riders, if you're gonna opine for a second here, they need to get that offense clicking a little bit better going into the playoffs here. I don't think they need to worry too much about the kicking game. But it's interesting too. I find that it's got to be the mental side of being a kicker and then being a skip and where it's on you at the end of the end as well. It's got to be a good parallel there. Like that you can take. Is that the closest sort of comparison between the two sports that are obviously so much different otherwise?
Yeah, I think so for sure. I think that's the biggest learning that I've been able to translate between the two sports has been sort of that pressure at the end and that big moment, I guess, when your teammates are sort of relying on you. And the key thing for me is just trusting in my teammates at all. I don't have to be perfect. I just got to give it a chance, and they're going to sort of finish it up. So it's probably similar in the kicker where you got to rely on your snapper and your holder to get that down and get that right. So then you just have to do your job, and yeah.
And I imagine too, like it's about you have to be in the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like whether it's a shot or a kick, no matter how it goes, once it's over, you got to move on to the next thing, right? Like how big is how critical has that been in sort of your development as a curler and sort of being able to sort of go shot to shot or moment to moment and then move on to the next thing?
Yeah, that's been the biggest thing. And I think this year, especially just playing against these top teams consistently over and over again, you really need to learn how to park your mistakes and sort of move on to that next shot. And there's going to be opportunities, so you just have to really believe that and then trust in your stuff, that all the work that you've put in.
So speaking of your football past, I mean, this weekend is a big football weekend, and both your former teams have big games. The Hilltops obviously are playing for another PFC championship, trying to wrestle it back from the Regina Thunder, which is not a scenario you ever had to face. You guys won it every year when you were a Hilltop, but then there's your Rams who are hoping maybe for a Huskies loss. Well, you need a Huskies loss or a tie, I guess, in order to finish first. So what's that like now as an alum of both of those programs to be sort of keeping tabs on those teams as they get into some very big games this weekend?
Yeah, I follow both of them quite closely still and sort of keep tabs. I watched the last Hilltops game, and their run game is looking pretty good, and that's what you kind of want when the weather gets a little colder. So actually I think the Rams run game's looking pretty good too. I think they have a young running back in there, so there's gonna be some good football this weekend for sure.
Yeah, I think Rams set a CJFL record a couple weeks ago. I think with a 620 rushing yards in a win, and of course, yeah, as I mentioned in what's going on, the Hilltops with 7 rushing touchdowns last weekend in that win over Winnipeg, including our friend of the show, David Collins, who was a previous guest here in that chair, who's had a tremendous season for the Hilltops. So do you get a lot of grief, though, being a Saskatoon guy who played for the Rams? Like how much crap do you have to take from like the Husky faithful here in that regard?
Yeah, it's a small world. So I've got good buddies on both sides. So it's yeah, you still get a little bit, but then you just gotta send it right back. So
well, what was it like to see the Rams beat the Huskies then last year in the Hardy Cup? Because that was the first time for them in forever, and they did it here in Saskatoon. So I bet there was a little bit of back and forth going on there.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was, yeah, it's an exciting team that it's pretty cool to see the sport of football, just how strong it is in Saskatchewan. We have 4 dominant programs, right? So it's pretty exciting that way.
Do you miss it at all? I'm sure your body probably doesn't, but do you miss having that competitive outlet, or is curling certainly has that served you well enough in that regard?
Yeah, I think curling served me well enough. Like you just said, my body thanks me for not playing anymore. So it's nice to be rested and healthy. So
I mean, not to say that curling doesn't take its toll as well, but maybe the ice baths aren't quite as frequent on that. Listen, Rylan, I know you've got so much going on, and I was so pleased that you were able to find some time to hop in here between events. I know you're off to another, I guess we'll wrap up there because you're off to the Grand Slam number 3. Which one is coming up here?
It's in Lake Tahoe.
And it is, which one? What's the name of it? I'm putting you on the spot here. It's not the
This
Tour
is-
Challenger, the Masters.
It's the Coyote.
That's right, the National.
Yeah,
it's called the
Coyote
National,
The National.
but it's in the States.
in the
So
States.
that's
the first one ever.
Yeah, so I've heard good things about the atmosphere down in Tahoe for curling. So
And Hall of Famer Jared Allen's going to be curling in that as well.
that's right. Talking about football, there
Yeah.
you go. Former NFL, what was he, a D lineman? Yeah,
D-lineman.
Hall of Famer, Pro Football Hall of Famer Jared Allen, and I heard he's pretty decent. This isn't some lark. Like he's really trying to be a competitive curler here. So
Yeah,
have you seen him play at all, or?
We've played against his team, but he wasn't
Okay.
there so I haven't seen him play yet, but yeah, it'll be pretty
Is
cool.
that one where you get a chance, you're going to get an autograph, or like, do you do that at all? Or?
Might have to.
Well, I wish you luck. It's been cool to see the progression that you've been making. Like I was saying off the top, it's been a little while since we connected. I know back in the day, I was talking to you about juniors and these sorts of things, and now, you know, that's a few years gone by now, and you've leveled up, and that's really cool to see. I know a lot of fans around here are watching your squad and are excited to see what you guys do in the coming years here. Good luck the rest of the season. Good luck at the trials. And when you win those, you'll have to come back here and we'll talk about going to the Olympics.
That sounds great. Thanks for having me on.
All right. A little more good sports still to come.
Good sport.
All right, awesome stuff. Great to reconnect with Rylan, and looking forward to seeing what that team can do over the next while here as they really come into their own at the elite level here. It's exciting stuff. Doesn't always translate from junior on to the next level, but this squad definitely has managed to make that jump, and they're just getting started now at this level. Just can't wait to see what they have in store in the next little while. Before we sign off, of course, we got to wrap up as we always do with our good sport of the week. And we go back to Rylan Kleiter's other sport for this one, someone that he knows fairly well through, we mentioned, of course, his connection to the Riders with Jorgen Hoos. Nick Wiebe, former Saskatchewan Husky, now Saskatchewan Rough Rider. He is the Riders nominee, or if you want to call him the Riders Award winner for their most outstanding special teams player this season. The 12th overall draft pick in 2024. Of course, Nick Wiebe was a linebacker with the Huskies. He registered a team-high 20 special teams tackles this season through 16 games. Also, that's the fourth highest total in the CFL. And Wiebe is just the fourth non-kicker and non-returner to be selected as the Riders nominee for Outstanding Special Teams Player since the award was introduced in 2002. And if you want to really win a great bit of bar trivia with your hardcore Rider fan friends, here are the other three players who have earned that distinction. It would be Sam Hurl, Dylan Ainsworth, and just last year, Roland Milligan Jr., who was a double nominee last year for the Riders. Maybe even a triple nominee, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, he's at least a double nominee for the Riders last year. The Eastern and Western Division finalists for the CFL Awards will be announced on October 30th. The awards themselves will be handed out on November 13th. So keep your eyes on that. Nick Wiebe, a former Saskatchewan Husky, now the Rough Riders' top special teams player in 2025. Congratulations to him. Nick Wiebe is our good sport of the week. And that wraps up another great edition, at least I certainly thought it was, of Good Sports for this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks again to Rylan Kleiter for hopping on during a very busy time of year for him. We certainly never take that for granted when our guests are able to come down to the studio and join us. And so we thank him and we wish him the best of luck moving forward. And I want to thank you as well for watching. As always, great to have you on board. Thanks to LB, our producer this week as well, and to Gary Nickel, always as well, for giving us the opportunity to do this show right here at Dufferin Ave Media Network. A reminder, you can follow us on Instagram at GoodSports306. Please like, share, and subscribe to the Dufferin Ave Media Network YouTube channel. And then if that all doesn't suffice, well, you can just come on back next week. Very excited about next week's show. Andrew Albers, former Major League pitcher, will be here. And right during the World Series, we certainly hope the World Series will still be going by then, unless the Jays have already swept it, in which case, good stuff. We'll do a post-mortem on the Jays crushing the Dodgers in the World Series next week. But looking forward to some exciting baseball talk. Here's some stories from Andrew Albers and his Major League career, his time in Korea, and all kinds of other stuff as well. So that's what you can look forward to next week on the show. Until then, I'm Ryan Flaherty saying thanks so much for watching. And as always, be a good sport.
Whatever makes you happy, what gets you out of bed, whatever kicks the cobwebs so you'll join in instead.
Good sport. sport.
A victorious daydream.
Good sport.
Don't sweat glory or fame.
Good sport.
Ain't we all on the same team?
Good sport.
It's the name of the game.